Good day everyone, I am Erin Jaimanti Anugat, Best in English, Section 1B. So this time I am going to discuss about principles of growth and development. Now let us define what is growth. Growth refers to an increase in physical size of the whole body or any of its part. It is simply a quantitative change in the child's body. When we say quantitative change, refers to the change that children will go through as they gain knowledge and grow larger physically. And also growth, it can be measured in kilogram, pounds, meters, inches, and etc. In addition, growth refers to physical increase in some quantity over time. It includes changes in terms of height, weight, body proportions, and general physical appearance. Example for that is a wild teenage girl becoming much calmer in her late 20s. So I give you another example. A boy getting an inch taller between the ages of 14 and 15. So that is the example of growth. Now, what is development? So, it refers to a progressive increase in skill and capacity of function. When we say qualitative change, these changes are in the way that the child thinks and behave. It also how they perceive the world as they grow older. Also, development, it can be measured through observation. So an example of this, the changing of a caterpillar to a butterfly. So there is a development through our observation. We only see by it. So that is one example of development. So this time we also define what is maturation. So maturation is the process of development that occurs as we grow and change. So there are two types of maturation. First is physical maturation, and the second is cognitive maturation. So when we say physical maturations, of course, when our body grows and changes as we get older. So when we say cognitive maturation, it means that it is the process of development in the way we think as we grow. So in addition, maturation is a process of growing up. So an example of this, becoming an adult with a career and other responsibilities. So that's what we call maturation. So he became mature through responsibilities that he carry on. And now, let us move on. So what is principle? So it means a fundamental, primary or general law or truth from which others are derived. And also it is a basic truth or the source or origin of something or someone. So an example of that is a list of values set by a group of people. In addition, growth and development are inseparable, but they differ from each other. So the growth represents the physical changes, as what I have said earlier. It is the physical changes of an individual, and also while development represents the overall changes, structure, and shape of an individual. So it is very important that we have a knowledge about growth and development because um, knowledge of the growth and development at the various stage is very essential for that teacher because the teacher has to stimulate the growth and development of a child. He can do it only if he has proper knowledge of the growth and development at various stages. Now, let us tackle about the principles of growth and development. So, there are 13 principles. So, number one, principle of continuity. So, when we say continuity, in other term, it is a consistent existence. So, principle of continuity, it is the development follows the principle of continuity, which means that development is a continuous process. For example, it starts with prenatal and ends with death. So that's what we call continuity principle or consistent existence. So let's move on to the second principle. So principle of integration. So it means that the development thus involves a movement from the whole to parts and from parts to the whole, and this way it is the integration of the whole and its parts as well as the specific and general responses. So it enables a child to develop satisfactorily in relation to various aspects or dimensions of his personality. So an example of that is child first starts to learn hand movement, then finger movement, and then as the time goes by, they learn the movement of both hand and finger together. So that's what we call integration. So that's the end of my report. So the next principles will be discussed with my group mates. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. I am here to continue to report the stages of growth and development. Principle number 3 is the lack of infirmity in developmental rate. So development through the continuous process but does not exhibit steadiness and uniformity in terms of the rate of development in various development of personality or in the developmental periods and stage of life. For example, ang anak ni Maria o anak ni Mary, pareho sila 7 years old. Ang isa, ang anak ni Maria is paspas kaayo siya nagtubo ang iyahang physical growth, like paspas siya nagtaas, paspas nig change ang iyahang voice kanang sign sa adolescence nato. Ang anak ni Maria wala kay siya nagtubo, pero ang iyahang pace sa iyahang mental o social development is unsani is paspas pod, like mas friendly siya, mas dali siya makakatch up sa lessons nila sa school, and then mas mo socialite siya sa other nga mga bata. Unlike sa anak atong isa, though mas paspas iyahang physical appearance ni growth, ang iyahang social ug mental development dili pod the same sa kadtong isa ka bata. So mao na siya ang meaning sa principle of lack of uniformity in the developmental rate. The fourth principle of individual difference is every organism is a distinct creation on itself. One of the most important principles of development that involves individual differences, there is no fixed rate of development. that all children will learn to walk in universal, but the time which each child takes his or her first step may vary. Unlike sa ako, in my own personal experience, I have already 2 kids. So ako ang anak na lalaki, murag 9 months old, mag-abat-abat na siya. Pero wala, dugay nagawa siya hangipon, dugay siya nakasturya. Akong anak na babae, 7 months old, mag-try na siya og kuan, mag-mumble na siya og mga words, and mas una gid siya nakasturya compared sa iyang kuya. Pero iyang kuya, una pud kaayo nakatuon og lakaw compared sa iyang manghod. Iyang manghod is mga 1 year kapin na nakatuon og lakaw. So each child will vary pud sa naay individual difference sa ilang growth and development. Principle number 5, the uniformity pattern. Although development does not proceed at a uniform rate and shows marked individual differences with regards to the process and outcome of various stages of development, yet it follows definite pattern or in one another dimensions which is uniform and universal with respect to a individual of a species. So ang 5th principle is, ang atong ginatakil is the development of every individual child. So ang 5th principle is uniformity patterns. Naapoy like kanang mag-teach ka sa daycare na ay mga children nga pareho gid sila og mga skills, pareho sila og pace sa ilang development. Like pag mag-friend sila, maka-catch up ang isa, catch up po dayon ang isa. Same sila og level of understanding, same sila og level of development. So uniformity ang tawag, pero napod nay guide sa kanang ilang environment, like pareho anang naanay teacher, like in ana. So kung mag-discuss ang teacher, most of the students uniform nga mas makasabot, pero naagyoy mga students nga medyo kanang ginatawag na to nga mas hinay siya og catch up. So principle number 6, principle of proceeding from general to specific. While developing in relation to any aspect of personality, the child first pick up or exhibit a general response and learn how to show specific and goal-directed response. Meaning, goal-directed response. From the word itself na ay goal, goal response. Pasabot, kung unsa imuhang ihatag sa bata, halimbawa, muingon ka sa bata nga, okay, naakay buhaton karon nga adlaw. Ato ang goal is before the day ends, dapat specific pug ka sa imuhang ipabuhat sa iya. Before the day ends, ma-answeran nimo ang pages 3 to 6. So, kung everyday na nimo ginakuan sa iya, it will become a habit and it will develop ang iyahang study pattern niya. So, ang 7th is principle of interaction between hereditary and environment. So, hereditary, the development of a child is a process that cannot be defined wholly based on either hereditary or environment. Both have to play an important role of development. There are arguments in favor of both. However, most of the psychologists agree that the interplay of these two factors leads to development. For example, naay bata, tapos iyahang ginikanan is mga dili gid kaayo inana ka bright iyahang mama ug papa, pero iyahang genes murag inato lang gid ang IQ level or unsa ba ang level of understanding sa bata, pero ang ginikanan naningkamot ibutang nimo siya sa private school or sa environment, sa dormitory nga studios kayo ang mga tao. So syempre imong anak mo-adapt sa iyang environment nga magsigi og study, thus it will enhance the skills of that child and it will develop its intellectual ability. Though iyahang genes dili kayo ingon nato nga bright or ana ba, pero kung ang iyahang giandan, iyahang gidak-an kay tungod iyang environment naga-study, so imuhang anak-anak or ang bata ana will develop a very good study habit. And principle number 8, principle of interrelation. Various aspects of dimension of one's growth and development are interrelated. What is achieved or not achieved in one or other dimensions in the course of the gradual and continuous process of the development surely affects the development of other dimensions. Health and body tends to develop a healthy mind and an emotionally stable, physically strong, and social conscious personality. Inadequate physical and mental development may, on the other hand, result in socially or emotionally maladjusted personality. So here, meaning interrelation. A healthy body tends to develop a healthy mind and an emotionally stable and physically strong and socially conscious personality. So, kani, murag base sa ato tanan makarelate ta ani. Kana lang daang mag-wake up ta every morning nga feeling nimo nga dili nimo feel maglihok, dili nimo feel mag-study. So healthy body, dapat healthy ka. Imuhang mental health is okay, stable. Imuhang emotions are stable para continuous imuhang growth o imuhang learning para sa development nimo to learn. So there are days nga dili gid nato feel mo lihok or feel mo work kanang di ba tapulan ta, so atong adlaw na dili gid siya productive. So inana lang gihapon sa growth and development sa bata. Kung ato ang anak masakiton, atong anak malnourished, atong anak wala ga vitamins, so maka-apekto gid na sa development sa iyahang brain o sa iyahang growth and development. So that ends my report for today. Thank you.
So now let's continue our topic about the stage growth and development of their principle. Principle of ofcipalocodal. According to this principle, a child will gain physically control of their head first. After this, physically control will move downward to the arms and lastly to the legs. Example, imagine that you are holding a new baby. You have to carefully support the baby's head because the baby is not strong. By that time, the child is 2 months old. If developed enough strength to hold its head, over the next few months, the baby control over the use of its arms. So, let's proceed the principle of proximodistal. Principle of proximodistal is where growth starts at the center of the body and moves toward the example, the early development of muscular control of the trunk and arms relative to the hands and the finger. Principle of predictability. Principle of predictability develop is predictable, which means that with the help of the uniformity of pattern and sequence of development, to a great extent we can forecast the general nature and behavior of a child. So example ani is kanang daan na nato mabantayan ang usa ka bata nga kana bitang ilang attitude or batasan or behavior nila sa pag-grow nila. Let's continue about the principle of spiral versus linear advancement. After the child had developed to a certain level, the path followed in a development by the child is not straight and linear, and development at any stage never takes place at a constant or steady pace. Example ato is kanang maglisod pa sila og kanang develop ito silang self nga kanang to become a maturity people or a person As I said about the predictability is atong mabantayan is ang behavior pa sa bata. So the age of 10 or 12 is kanang magalisod pa sila adjust sa ilang kaugalingon kung unsa jud ang ilang true behavior and true attitude sa ilang self. So let's continue about principle of association of maturation and learning. So biological growth and development are known as the maturity. Biological change involves change in the brain and the nervous system which provide new abilities to a child. So ang kini diri nga principle is diri na nila tun-an or dili na sila magbag-o as a maturity kanang mag-mature na ilang tingog, ang ilang kanang panghuna-huna daghan na sila more knowledge or nga ma-adapt sa ilang kaugalingon. Siguro mag-edad sila og 12 to 15 above. And that's all. Thank you. God bless.